Today we're going to talk about some trigonometric identities, which are things that people much smarter than myself have proven with their sweet math skills, and we just get to benefit by saying, oh, nice, thanks for doing that for me. So reciprocal identities, we actually do know this based on graphing and based on when we were finding sides of right triangles and stuff. Like cosecant, we'll say cosecant of theta, and remember cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, so we'll say equals 1 over sine of theta. We know that secant is 1 over cosine. And we know that cotangent is 1 divided by tangent, right? That is the reciprocal of tangent. All right, now we'll get into tangent and cotangent ratio identities. Now we used to say that tangent was the y-coordinate divided by the x-coordinate. But now we're going to say, because remember the y-coordinate is the same as the sine. So we're going to say tangent of theta is the sine of theta over the cosine of theta. Great. Now if we did that for cotangent, it would just be the reciprocal. So the cotangent is the cosine of theta over the sine of theta. Now we're going to be using all these kind of identities to prove that things are true. It's kind of like when we had to do proofs in geometry and you had to prove that triangles were similar by all these different properties. It's kind of the same deal here. The Pythagorean identities are where it gets a little bit trickier, so I wrote them down because otherwise I'll forget some of these too. So the first one says that cosine squared theta, so if you take the cosine squared plus sine squared of theta is equal to 1. Now you are able to manipulate this identity, so if you were looking for sine squared, you can subtract the cosine squared onto the other side. So it would say sine squared of theta equals 1 minus cosine squared theta, and things of that nature. You have to be comfortable moving equations around. So the next one says that 1 plus tangent squared theta is equal to secant squared theta. And the last one of these Pythagorean identities says cotangent squared theta plus 1 equals cosecant squared theta. Whew. Okay, last one, the negative angle identities. So if you have sine of negative theta, you can go ahead and just kick the negative to the front and make it negative sine theta. So they call that an odd identity, meaning that, like, think of like something to the third power. If you had negative 3 to the third power, it would end up becoming negative. Whereas cosine of negative theta, that's an even identity, so the negative actually cancels out. So cosine of negative theta is actually equal to just the cosine of theta. So think of like if you had negative 5 squared, it would come out to positive 25. So that's an even identity. And then tangent is kind of similar to sine, it's an odd identity. So we'll say tangent of negative theta equals negative tangent theta. So we are going to need these to prove all these equations we have coming up on the next few slides. So make sure you have that written down.